Welcome to Book Buddies, the podcast full of book reviews, rankings, and all sorts of activities with books. I'm Louisa Hammond, self-proclaimed book dragon with a Bachelor of Arts in English with an emphasis in creative writing, as well as theater. Today, we're going to be talking about some of my favorite books. There's a little twist this time. All these books are more than 100 years old and considered classics. Most of the books I read are relatively new, probably came out 21st century, not to, I don't know, but they're generally newer. So today, I'm going to shed some light on books that are a bit older than I normally read. I've been trying to read more classics over the years, and I've come across some that I really love. And today, we're going to talk about them. And this list is in no particular order. First up, if you know me, you know it has to be on here. It's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It is a story about a young woman named Elizabeth, and she ultimately falls in love with Mr. Darcy, even though he's a bit prideful and she has a bit of a prejudice. I love not just the romance of the story, but I really love the humor. You have a huge cast of characters. Jane Austen was always a little bit of a satirical writer. You have Mrs. Bennet, whose whole personality, she's trying to marry off her daughters, even if she knows her daughters really don't like their suitors. And you have some of the suitors who are ridiculous. And there's a reason why this book is so loved and adapted for so many years. And then also, I love some other Jane Austen novels. You have Emma. It's in line with Pride and Prejudice. It's a comedy. Well, a very notable comedy. Our main character is Emma. She is a well-off lady, and she's a bit prideful. I kind of like to call her, I would say if Lizzie and Darcy had a daughter, I could imagine her being a bit like Emma. She's very confident with herself, she's witty, but she's a little unaware. This book famously inspired Clueless, so if you really love Clueless, I would recommend you check Emma out. And then also you have Persuasion. It's a little bit different from the other two. It's a little bit slower, more mature. Our main character, Anne, is older than Lizzie and Emma. She's nearing spinsterhood. It's a very reflective piece. And there were definitely moments in this book when I felt my heart cry. It's a really great book, and it deserves more love, I'd say. It's not as funny and lighthearted as some of other Jane Austen's other works, but I think the tone helps it stand out, and I really love it. Next up on the list, I have Peter Pan, and I'm sure we're all familiar with the story, whether we've read the book or watched a film adaptation. For me, I grew up with the 1953 Disney movie, so it'll always have a special spot in my heart. And that made reading the book a lot of fun. It is quite different, I'd say. There are some plot lines that didn't make it into the movie, but I think that doesn't make the book or the movie any less special. I remember definitely having a lot of fun when I read this book, and also learning that apparently Peter cut off Hook's right hand, not his left hand. Bit of a shocker when I read this book for the first time. But I really love the magic and the childhood whimsy of this book, and I will definitely be rereading this in the 2030s, and I will want to share some of the story with my children if I ever have any. From a childhood classic to something a little bit more spooky, we have The Picture of Dorian Gray. Admittedly, this is a philosophical horror, making it not as spooky as some people may think, but that doesn't take away how good this book is. It's about a beautiful young man named Dorian Gray. He gets wind of how beautiful he is and how valuable he is. His youth and beauty is tied to him after a portrait is created of him, the titular picture, and he's fed false lies that his youth and beauty is really all he has. This leads to him making a wish that his portrait will bear his age and sins for him while he continues to be young and beautiful forever. And As I mentioned, this is a more philosophical novel, and I think that definitely helps resonate with you long afterwards. I also love how it's actually a quite timeless story if you think about how this was written in the 1800s. In the 1900s, you have Death Becomes Her, story of women obsessed with their beauty. They're taking a potion that will make them young and beautiful forever, even if there will be consequences. And then similarly, last year, you had the horror movie The Substance, all about some people being obsessed with youth and beauty and the consequences that can come from it. There are some things that make me mad. Specifically, I hate Lord Henry Wotton. He's up there with characters I absolutely despise, such as Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter and President Snow from The Hunger Games. But I think sometimes it's good to get a little angry, because it means that character was well written. And I just love how it's spooky. This is a spooky book, but it also has a lot to say, even more than 100 years later. The Beauty and the Beast by Gabrielle Suzanne Barba de Villeneuve. This is, of course, the inspiration of the classic Beauty and the Beast story that has been adapted hundreds of times throughout the years. And similar to Peter Pan, I love getting to read about the inspo. I have, of course, read storybooks where it is more similar to the book. You know, Beauty has some sisters. Her father is captured by the Beast because of the rose. And I really love reading other versions of classic fairy tales, especially because Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorite Disney movies. And the fun thing about this edition is there are some pictures, and it's actually a little interactive, as you can see. Yeah, you can, let's see if I can get it on. But yeah, you can it's really fun to go through this book with all the inspiration, with all the interactive elements. And it's fun getting to see what ultimately would lead to some of the greatest animated movies, Disney movies of all time. But getting back to the spooky train, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I'm sure we're all very familiar with the character of Frankenstein from pop culture. However, he's quite different in the original Frankenstein book. In fact, I was kind of shocked to see how different what this book was like, because I am so familiar with how Frankenstein's monster is portrayed in modern adaptations. Similar to Dorian Gray, this is a more philosophical horror novel, though you do have a monster who's getting revenge on his creator. And it's a very reflective piece. You have the dangers of somebody trying to play God and all the consequences that come from it. I also was able to study this book a little bit deeper in last year for class, and we had some really interesting takes, specifically how, spoilers, as the monster continues to kill more and more people, he's becoming more of a man, because that is how he has seen man treat him. He's specifically mistreated throughout, and somebody even shoots him at one point. And I am also super excited to see the Guillermo del Toro film that's going to be coming out later this year. And I hope that it follows the book a little bit more closer than what we get to see. And I highly recommend that you read the book. The final book that I have on this list is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Now, we all know the story where it's a young girl who ends up in Wonderland and it all turns out to be a dream. And similar to other books that are famous inspirations of different adaptations of movies we all love, there's some notable differences. For one, this is technically the first book in a series. You have Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and then Alice Through the Looking Glass. And a lot of the times when people make adaptations of Alice's stories, they will merge them into two. So there are some things that are not in this book that you see in the Disney movies, but there's some things that didn't make it in. And I love getting to read this. Similar to Peter Pan, I love all the the whimsy and the magic of it. And I love the feeling of Alice in Wonderland where nothing quite makes sense and you get to have a lot of fun with that. So those are some of my favorite 100-year-plus old books. I definitely would recommend you read all of these, and don't be fooled by the age, because these are all timeless books and they have a lot to offer even in the 21st century. If you like this, please share it with your friends. I'm Louise Hammond, and I'll see you next time.